3.5 million workers. That's the amount of people who are missing from the workforce since the pandemic hit more than 3 years ago, according to Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. That's how big the labor force would be if it was to return to pre-pandemic levels. When it comes to the people who were looking for work or currently employed. So, HR leaders across the country are probably asking themselves, how can I think innovatively to fill the vacant positions I have open? Well, I'm glad you stopped by today because I have a friendly suggestion that may solve this very problem. Have you ever considered the competitive advantage that you would get by infusing individuals with disabilities into your workforce, particularly those who are neurodivergent? And my friends, here is the reality of the matter. Individuals who are neurodivergent are more likely to be under or unemployed than any other person with any other type of disability, according to Jobs for People with Disabilities. Unemployment for neurodiverse adults stands at 30 to 40%, which is 3 times higher than the rate for individuals with disabilities and 8 times higher than the rate for folks without disabilities. Katherine McCord is a physically and neurodivergent woman herself. She's built her career on inclusive innovation in people operations and HR tech. She lives by the motto that different is not a deficit. In 2014, she founded Titan Management, which is a national consulting firm focused on people operations, and in 2021, she became a true HR innovator when she designed the first ever fully accessible and non-biased application tracking system plugin, which fires the resume and showcases company diversity. And she joined me this week to tell me how other organizations and workplaces can fully embrace people who are neurodivergent to open up the floodgates of opportunities and make their workplaces fully accepting of all people of all abilities. I know that I'm excited to have this comprehensive and thought-provoking conversation about workplace diversity with McCord. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. To welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you this morning about neurodiversity and workplace diversification. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's my favorite topic, so I couldn't be more pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Catherine, I wanted to start with your own personal journey, being a neurodiverse individual yourself. I don't know how much research you did on me, but I also was born with cerebral palsy. So we have a mutually beneficial passion to promote inclusion. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me about your journey as a neurodiverse individual and why it's so important to you to advocate for
Absolutely.
workplace diversification.
Absolutely. And yes, I did do my research and I thought, well, this will be a fun conversation to have. As a lot of times my conversations are with people who are not in the community on these podcasts. So it's very lovely to have the experience to have someone else. So for anybody who doesn't know, neurodiversity simply means a medically visible and or diagnosable difference in how the brain processes information and stimuli. And from the time I was 4, or so, give or take, my mother started realizing that I was very clearly under the obsessive compulsive disorder spectrum. I had some very unusual habits, including categorizing my M&Ms, being obsessed with even numbers, so on and so forth, and having needing some very specific things in my life as I got older. I also developed bipolar 1, and then I started having a few other conditions, well, including a seizure disorder that has changed how my brain functions and processes. And so I now have actually 7 invisible disabilities. 2 are kind of linked, so I usually just say 6 because 2 of them kind of go together. So 6 invisible disabilities, and several of which change how I process information. And so that's a little bit about my journey. But I, and my background is in people operations consulting and recruiting and innovation and creating new HR technology and all of this, and speaking on these topics. But it was not my experience that made me want to get into this work. It was because of what I saw happening to the people in the workplaces that I worked with and my candidates. And I saw the nonsense happening to them every single day. And I decided, well, this is just silly. And that obsessive compulsive disorder kicked in of must fix the problem, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I just started working in the field.
Yeah, it's an important knack to be a problem solver, isn't it? Not everybody has that same level of commitment, right?
Right. It's very true.
Yeah, and Catherine, tell me about the importance of really embracing diversity in the workforce and sort of the competitive advantage it can come with if HR leaders really diversify their thinking and embrace diversity. What do you think the competitive advantages are there?
Oh my goodness, they're almost infinite, honestly. And what's beautiful is that this has been started to be proved through some very specific experiments conducted by certain organizations. But I'll start with, so according to it, I'm going to cite my sources, so anybody who wants to look this up afterwards can. So I'm going to be using statistics from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics in the United States, from Boston Consulting Group, through McKinsey Research, and Hewlett Packard as well and also a few studies that were cited in Forbes. So here's kind of the diatribe. So you get higher creativity, you get more innovation, you get lower turnover, you get higher employee satisfaction, and you actually increase your profits an average of 19%. You also will have productivity in general go up an average of approximately 30 to 35%. Hewlett Packard actually created an entire department that was specifically designed not only to hire neurodiverse individuals, but to cultivate their natural talents. They let them work however they wanted. So if they wanted to wear headsets and listen to music, great. If they wanted to sit on a yoga ball instead of a desk chair, great. Whatever it was that they wanted to do to work naturally. If they wanted to walk around while they worked, they let them do that. And that team was 33% more productive than its counterparts, because the team was not only diverse, but it was cultivated in a natural state. And Psychology Today, as well as other sources, have released studies talking about the importance of the brain being able to work naturally in a way that's comfortable. And so when that was allowed, productivity increased, profits increased, innovations increased. And so the benefits are almost infinite. And we've also started to learn that disability and difference is not a deficit, right? We've started to learn that these wonderful characteristics come with these differences. I actually just did a presentation about this too at an event called AIMS. We were speaking to politicians and United Nations delegates about, and my particular topic was neurodiversity and sustainability. And I talked about how these beautiful quote superpowers, whether it's intense focus or strong empathy or the ability to think in 3D or just all these different sort of gifts and creativity that come from these very specific neurodiversities, and even just the stronger willpower and things that the other and different and stronger resiliency that people in different disability communities have. It's really remarkable when they bring that to the workplace and that's encouraged and people allow for it to thrive. It's incredible to see the innovations and the new directions that things go.
Yeah, absolutely. And, speaking of the concept of technology, Catherine, I was actually the first ambassador for a project called the Discoverability Network here in Ontario, in the province of Ontario, in my hometown of Windsor, which was the province of Ontario's first online job matching portal for individuals with disabilities and employers to get connected. The name of the project was the Discoverability Network, and the whole idea was to create an online interface to match individuals with disabilities and employers to get connected. Because, when I started working with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Catherine, we did a study and it found that 77% of small and medium-sized businesses wanted to hire folks with disabilities, but they didn't know where to look. So tell me about the importance of embracing technology and how it's interconnected to infusing those with disabilities into the workforce.
You know, that is that is a wonderful question because it's something that I'm very passionate about. I think that because a lot of companies, to your point, feel lost about where to find people in the disability community, but they're not realizing that they're causing their own problem with their technology, right? So their technology is not inclusive. So a few different things that I think are important to remember is that just because something works for you doesn't mean that it works for everyone else. So when you are looking to purchase a technology or design a technology, it's important to think, how does this work for different groups and what are the solutions that we offer? For instance, the neurodiverse community can struggle a lot with different application forms for various and sundry reasons. People with vision impairment can struggle with them as well. So there's a wonderful company called Userway, one word, and they have a plugin that when people click on it and select a diagnosis or a particular need, the entire technology is then altered for them and allows them to be able to use the site more or the software more effectively, which is beautiful. And even just in how questions are asked, so asking open-ended questions versus very specific questions can be difficult for certain people. So that's part of it. Showing representation is a big part of it. But when you're I love the program that you were discussing because it's so very important to go to where the people are. So make sure that you're using forums when you're posting your job ads that are also inclusive, and when you are creating your application process, make sure that you are designing for accessibility, because if it's not accessible, then you're not going to get the candidates, right? So that's just the tie-in. You just have to make sure that the technology was designed appropriately. And many companies will tell you that they did. So probe more and ask, how is it accessible? What about this? What about that? And just ask some more questions and have some different people other than yourself look at your technology to help find the holes and some things that may need to be fixed.
Yeah, and Catherine, I'm going to ask you sort of a personal question because
Sure.
I firmly believe that we all have to challenge ourselves to be 1% better than
Yes.
the day that we were before. So tell me, how do you challenge yourself to be that 1% better each day, and how do you hope to grow within the next 5 to 10 years?
That is a lovely question, actually, one that I've not been asked before. So thank you. I every single day I make it a point to learn something. I have a naturally curious mind, and so I always want to learn something new. So every single day I insist upon learning at least one new fact, one new technology, meet a new person that tells me a story I've never heard before, and I can learn from that. And so that's how I like to grow. It's expanding my curiosity and learning different human experience. um, and over the next few years, my goal is to expand my understanding of inclusion and true accessibility design. So that's my main target, and sustainability as well. That is my main target of intellectual and personal growth over the next several years.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, as you know, we recently celebrated Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So tell me about the importance of the occasion of bringing attention to the digital access rather for people with disabilities, and just overall the importance of paying homage to a day that recognizes accessibility. How important do you think that is?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. So number one, I love the celebration aspect that we get sometimes of celebrating those wonderful humans who have made the big strides and have made the big sacrifices for the community. I think that that's a beautiful, important thing to do. We do the same thing with other important aspects, right? And I think that that's absolutely vital to remind us of the joy that can come from that. But then that we still need the reminder that we have a ways to go. And I think it's an excellent opportunity to kind of on a more universal or global scale to showcase the work that still needs to be done and where we are in getting there, right? So we have these steps that we're taking. So to show people, okay, we're here, this is where we need to be, and this is why. And I like to add kind of a welcoming form to that of, hey, any ideas? I think it's a great opportunity to get ideas at that point and say, okay, here's where we are, here's what we have going on. What ideas do you have? And just to see, because collaboration, even with people who are not quote experts, always breeds the best innovation. And I always like to remind people that it's not just the experts. A lot of times, it's the beginners that come up with the greatest advancements. So to just take that time to learn from one another, to remind ourselves that we do still have work to go, that yes, we're doing better, but we still have a lot of space. And then to honor all those lovely humans who are out there currently doing or who have done the work to help make our world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Catherine, I talk a lot to business leaders about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility in the workforce. So I'm fascinated to ask you for any HR professional who may be watching this or listening to it today, tell me what would be your message to them about sort of eliminating those attitudinal barriers and really embracing the fact of difference in the workplace. What do you think is your message to employers about the positive benefits of hiring folks with disabilities?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I tell any company and that I speak about in any of my speeches is we need to break our ego defense and we need to respond with curiosity. And the ego defense is a naturally occurring phenomenon in your biology. It occurs in your brain. It's when your brain needs to feel correct, so it throws up defenses when something is counter to that. So if somebody disagrees with you, expresses a need that's counter to what you understand, your brain automatically wants to defend itself. But what you must learn to do, because that's counterproductive to us once we're adults and once we are in the workplace, is to block that and say, thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe, but I don't need that. and to respond in curiosity and ask questions and to get to know more. Because a lot of what we see is that people will say, oh, no, that's not reasonable because this, and this, or you don't really need that. I need you to do it this way. And my need is what reigns supreme. So instead of that, respond with curiosity. Um, and then the benefits, I mean, like I said, they're infinite. You're going to make more money. The innovation will increase. Recruiting, you won't have to work as hard once you get once you get more people on, because the more included people felt and the more diverse your employee base, the more successful you'll be, the higher retention you will have, and it will be a more successful venture. And and then the next step that I always encourage as well is to make accommodations standard options. Stop making people jump through hoops. Accenture did a study that showed that approximately 95% of accommodations are free to low cost. And when I say low cost, I mean approximately $5. So there's just no reason to make people jump through hoops to have the things that will make them work more effectively. I talked about earlier that the brain works better when it's allowed to work naturally. So make accommodation standard. And when your body is physically feeling better, you work better. So help your people to work in a way that's natural for them. Offer accommodations up front, and then leave a fill in the blank for anything else that people need in the interview process, when you onboard them, so on and so forth. And I have a whole spiel about why it's important to offer it, not just let people know that you will accommodate, but it is highly important because a lot of the community, won't believe you that you actually do want to accommodate them just because of history. And then B, some people don't know what they need, but then when they see it, they go, oh my gosh, that would make my life so much better, because we've not been taught to take care of ourselves and to advocate for ourselves. So when you offer that, you are actually helping them to see what they may or may not need and helping them to learn better how they can work more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that in 2014 you founded Titan Management, which is a national people operations consulting firm. And if that wasn't enough, in 2021 you took the bull by the horns by designing the first ever fully accessible anti-bias sort of application tracking plugin, which
Yeah.
gets rid of the resume and focuses on company diversity. So I'd love for you to dive into that for me this morning and tell me all about it.
Sure, absolutely. So it was a love project. I have not liked applicant tracking systems for many years. They were invented as an answer to the large job boards such as Monster.com and Career Builder back in the 90s, and they've hardly evolved in structure. So they've added some cool new features like automated email and things like that, but they've not actually changed in terms of basic structure. And the resume creates all kinds of problems. Number one, there's not a universal way to make them, so it's always just a guessing game. They generate bias, so on and so forth. And Harvard did some studies around that. But we need a better way, right? And I wanted to help hiring teams to receive the information more effectively, and I also wanted to remove bias from the application process. I can't fix humans. I can't remove it from the whole interview process, but to remove it from the application process. So we did. I found as many humans as I can with as many diversities as I can from all different types of positions. I worked with hiring managers. I worked with executives, and we came up with this design. And they would help tweak the design and come up with different ideas. And all of that feedback was implemented, every single bit of it, to the point that what we designed was a system that when a candidate goes to apply for a job, number one, they can see your company diversity at different levels. It showcases, and it's very broad category. So it will say, racially diverse, or it will say gender diverse, sex diverse, so on and so forth. So it's in broad categories, and all of the data is acquired anonymously. None of it is assigned to a specific person, so the company has no idea who is who. But it showcases that diversity so that people can see what's going on. You have an opportunity to talk about your diversity program. Then they go to apply, and it lets them know that their name will be masked, their email, their phone number, all of that, until they decide that they're comfortable moving forward with the job. Then they fill out a skill matching section so that the company has said, these skills matter most to us. Where do you rank with them? It goes through that. Then we have some one-line response sections where people can tie projects that they've done directly to the work that will be done at this company. So the company can say, these are the types of projects, how do you relate to them? What's your relatable experience? And it's not a paragraph answer. It's a 1 or 2 sentence answer. Very simple. And then it goes on from there, talks about volunteer experience. And we also do not give dates of employment or job titles, because job titles are silly. Half the time they don't even really describe what you do. They can also be used for discrimination, so we eliminated them. And we don't use dates of employment because they can also be discriminatory. So instead, we used an average tenure calculator so that you can still showcase the average length of time that you're at a job, so that employers can feel comfortable with with your longevity. It's not a marker I particularly care for, but I couldn't get companies to let that one go. So that's one that we added. So basically the entire thing is designed by the diverse for the diverse. It takes 5 to 7 minutes to fill out completely if you don't copy paste and then you're just manually filling it out, or if you don't use LinkedIn to fill out part of it. So it takes at longest 7 minutes. It's specifically designed to help you align to the role, and it's specifically designed to remove bias. And we also use UserWay so that anybody who has any particular needs can click on that button and have everything be more comfortable for them.
Absolutely. And, Catherine, just talking to you, I'm fascinated to ask you, how do you define the term HR innovator? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be an HR innovator, in your opinion?
Shaking it up, just completely changing how we do HR. I never use the "this is how we've always done it" approach. It's just whatever the best way is forward that's still within legal compliance. Obviously, that's how we move forward. And so my goal is to make everything truly human focused in HR, and to get rid of the old "we're here to protect the company" mentality, and to move into "we are here to cultivate the humans and to take care of all the humans on behalf of the company" kind of mentality. So that's what it is to me: shaking it up, doing what's best, and always being forward facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Catherine, I don't know if you knew this, but Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says that 3.5 million workers were out of the workforce due to the pandemic, and that's how many workers we would need to get back to pre-pandemic levels for people to have a fully functioning workforce. So tell me about the advantages that hiring folks with disabilities would do to sort of shrinking that labor gap and helping companies really get back to work.
That's actually a great question. It's and not one that very many people think of, but it's very true. So again, you get that alternate perspective, right? So first of all, from a very broad standpoint, you're just going to get diversity of thought when you bring in different people with different disabilities, and they'll have different ideas of how things are done. They'll also have different experiences as with different technologies and different methods, things like that. But another wonderful benefit is that when people see others like them or experience other people like them in an organization, it makes them feel more comfortable. Or maybe somebody reminds them of their mother or their father or their brother or their sister or their best friend. And then those people will be more comfortable with your organization and will come to you. But then another wonderful, wonderful benefit to hiring people with disabilities in terms of actually shrinking the labor shortage is that a lot of times it is the people with disabilities who struggle the most to get that employment. And so if you particularly reach out to the group that struggles the most because of lack of accessibility to absolutely no fault of their own, then you're going to automatically start solving the problem better. It doesn't, in other words, it's if you reach out to the group that is least likely to automatically get a new job, then you will be helping more by attracting that type of talent and by helping to help the higher at risk group. It's the same concept sort of with health triage. You know how you always go in the emergency room, they go straight for the heart attack victims and burn victims and things like that, as opposed to the person with a broken finger, right? They're going to heal a lot better, a lot quicker. They don't need the emergency help. But the truth is that in our job economy, And it's tragic, but it's true that the disability community truly struggles to find employment. And it's the last number I saw, and this was horrible, was that over 80% still struggle to find full-time employment. And that's tragic. That's absolutely horrible. And there's no need for it. There's just absolutely no need. So if you consider that a huge portion of the people out there that are struggling in this job market are the people who have always struggled to have full-time employment, reaching out to them, bringing them into the circle and giving them that shot will then start to eliminate that perpetuated 80% of this hidden talent. You know, people are always saying, oh, I'm looking for talent. I'm looking for talent. Well, if you start reaching out to the folks that you've not yet accessed, you'll start to solve your own problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I'm also wondering your thoughts on what it truly means to foster an inclusive award force, and how folks with neurodivergent talent can really help to broaden perspective of everyone within the workforce.
Oh yes, people with neurodiversity. It's so funny because I've seen even more excitement at sharing information in this community. We love to share ideas and thoughts. We are very apt towards activities such as think tanks and things like that. So when you have a group of neurodiverse individuals coming together, you will often have a wide variety of talents, and they will come together in complementary ways to each other to express different ideas and to communicate in different ways. And because they all communicate in different ways, then they can connect with people who learn in different ways. And so it creates a very different experience. And also the hands-on knowledge, right? It's when we don't understand something that we're confused or upset by it, right? So just even having people around you that have those different neurodiversities will automatically expand your mind to, oh yeah, this is a safe thing, this is a good thing, I had this interaction with this person, we worked well together, and now my mind is open even further. So even just from a practical standpoint, but yes, people with neurodiversities love to share their information, thoughts, ideas, typically, not all, and in different formats, so it can create a different learning experience just from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Catherine, how do you think mental health and overcoming biases are also interconnected in the workforce?
Oh boy. um Mental health, it's a tough topic. So overcoming biases is it's tough work. It's just a matter of, again, breaking the ego defense and learning and putting in the effort to organize. But when you don't do that, you create the mental health problems and the psychological safety concerns, where people don't feel safe, they don't feel that they can speak up, they don't have stability, and that creates more problems, and it just becomes cyclical. So they're very much interconnected from the standpoint of, if you don't work towards breaking your bias and you don't work towards true inclusion, then you are accidentally creating mental health concerns for other people. I mean, you ask people to mask, which means that they're behaving in a way that's not natural to them to make you feel comfortable. You are creating stress in their brain, actual physical stress in their brain, and then that creates mental stress, right, which then perpetuates the poor mental and even physical health. So it's very important, as we start to move towards this more inclusive society, that we stop asking people to mask, that we start accepting them as they are in all of their uniqueness. And I don't mean if something, you know, is potentially dangerous or something like that. You know, that's not what I mean. Um, and but it's but being asking people, but letting people be themselves and work in ways that is natural to them and to act in ways that are natural to them creates a healthier human being and perpetuates that across your workforce, even with non-disability persons. So it's extremely important, to make that connection, and again to break that ego defense and respond with curiosity of, okay, you need that, all right, tell me more about that, let's talk about that, let's figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I know that you live your life by the motto that different is not a deficit. So Tell me about the motto and why it's so important to you.
So I developed that years ago because I noticed that when people heard the word disability or they heard a certain diagnosis, that they automatically started assuming less than and started assuming incapabilities, and they started projecting onto other people what they could and could not do. That's called social disability, by the way, and it's infliction. It's not anything to do with the person themselves. It's what society has decided they can or cannot do, or individuals have decided they can or cannot do. And so and my differences have not stopped me. They've not, in most cases, not hindered me. In some ways, my disabilities have helped me. My obsessive compulsive disorder helps me to stay highly organized in my work, which is very important. It's also helped me to be a great researcher, which is important in my work. Then my bipolar diagnosis even helps me. My mania cycles, man, I am superwoman when I am on a manic cycle. I can do anything at any speed. It's remarkable. I'm very creative in those cycles. So different is not a deficit. It's just different. That's all it is, right? And the more that we come to understand that, and the more that we stop thinking of something different than us as less than, as not as good, then the sooner we can get down to the real business of making this world a lot greater and stop pushing each other down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, my final question for you is the way that I end all of my podcasts by asking, when you look at your own life and legacy, how do you want that to be defined from both a personal and professional standpoint?
I have my three missions, and I just want everything to be about those. And those are inclusion, integrity, and innovation. And when I leave this world, I want to have made a real social impact towards inclusion, innovation, and integrity. And as long as that happens, I'm a happy lady.
Absolutely. And finally, Catherine, tell me if people want to get connected with the good work that you do, what's the best way they can do that?
Oh, find me on LinkedIn. I am all over it. I am always on there, so you can message me, connect with me. I'm always here to help. If you want an introduction, if you want to know a great tool that could possibly be useful, if you want to learn how to make accommodation standard, whatever that is, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Also, my speaking site is kmccordspeaking.com, and you can contact me on there as well.
Fantastic. Well, Catherine, I started our conversation at the outset by telling you that we both share a mutual passion for promoting diverse and inclusive workforces for folks with disabilities. So I really want to thank you for the work that you do in this effort and for joining me in conversation this morning. It's most appreciated.
Thank you. It has been a true pleasure.